Hi, welcome to the How Do I video series on Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. My name is Mark Brummel and I'm an MVP for Microsoft Dynamics NAV. I will be presenting how do I implement the transaction data update pattern in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. This video is made in collaboration with Plataan, a Microsoft Dynamics Learning Center from Belgium, and Microsoft. At the end of this video you will have a better understanding of how to implement transaction data update in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. The objective of this video is to first look at design patterns as a concept. We will also introduce anti-patterns. After this, we will look at updating transaction data in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. Design patterns are common solutions or best practices to solve problems. This is a well-known concept in computer programming and can therefore be applied to Dynamics NAV as well. This video is part of a series around design patterns in Dynamics NAV, and during this video I will reference to other patterns and videos. For this video we will also introduce anti-patterns. Where design patterns are best practices, anti-patterns are ineffective and have a chance of being counterproductive. Anti-patterns can be solutions to solve problems that once were design patterns and now have become obsolete because of new insights and progression in software development. The anti-pattern for the setup update is test field. In this video we will be going through 3 easy steps. In step 1, meet the pattern, we will look at simplified UI, the goals of this pattern and alternatives. In step 2, know the pattern, we will look at the steps to implement setup update. And in step 3, we will look at an example of the pattern in Dynamics NAV 2015. The simplified UI was first introduced in Dynamics NAV 2013 R2. The goal is to make the product more intuitive to be used in smaller companies. To accomplish this, a number of new design patterns were introduced, of which the setup update is one. Traditionally, we are used to throw runtime errors in Dynamics NAV whenever crucial data is missing that we need for processing in Dynamics NAV. If we look at the posting structure, this process is located in the test near, test far part, as discussed in the video How do I read and understand posting routines? If we look at an example of the test near process, we can see that a test field is being used. This throws a runtime error, breaking the process, demanding the user to look up the data which is incorrect and start the process again. This new design pattern is designed to allow users to update the data without stopping the transaction and allowing a more smoother use of the software. This pattern is applicable to smaller organizations since the owner of the data is often the same person. In larger organizations there are single points of responsibility for master data and setup. Therefore this pattern should only be implemented where it makes sense that the person is running into the issue is the same person that can solve the issue. Let's have a look at the structure of the pattern to see how we can implement a more friendly way of testing data. We start by implementing a function as a member of the table that has a logical name, like verify and set the data to be verified and set. Instead of a test field, we would have to implement a function that verifies if the data exists and, if necessary, ask the user to fill in the blanks. When this is required, we need to run the page and allow the user to interact. And when this is done, we need to verify again and message or error if the data is still not available, depending on the fact if the data is mandatory or optional. Let's see how this works in Dynamics NAV 2015. An example of this pattern has been implemented when printing the sales invoice. If we print a sales invoice, the system throws a warning that the payment information provided in the company information is not complete, and it asks us if we want to update the information before continuing printing the invoice. It allows us to populate the data, and if we don't, the system warns us that the prepayment information is not provided, but it allows us to preview the report anyway. So let's see how this is implemented in the application. The function is started from the sales invoice. If we design the sales invoice, we can go to the function initReport. This trigger is being executed before the user populates the data in a request page. We can see that the system runs a function called verify and set payment info as a member of the company information. If we go to the definition of this function, we see that it's a member of the company information. And the first step is testing if the payment information is available. This is a very flexible transaction, and in this case it tests if a combination of 6 fields is populated or if the system is set up to allow blank payment info. If the payment information is available, the system exits. Otherwise, it asks if the user wants to populate the data runtime. After asking the user if they want to complete the data, the system checks if the data is now available and throws a warning if the data is still not available. In this case, the data is optional. If the data were mandatory for this transaction, instead of a message, we can throw an error. If we go back to Dynamics NAV and we print the invoice again, if we put something in the bank name, we can see that it prints the bank name, and if we run the process again, it doesn't ask for the information anymore because one of the mandatory fields is now populated. The most important limitation of this pattern is the fact that it cannot run during data modification. This is due to the run model of the page. Running a model page would cause a block in the system. Microsoft Dynamics NAV prevents you from doing that. However, as long as you implement the test near, test far, do it cleanup pattern in your transactions nicely, you should never run into this limitation. In this video we have learned how to implement the transaction data update pattern in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. Thanks for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in another episode of the How Do I video series for design patterns on Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015.